Okay, for now, the topic will be designers in Web3. So let's welcome our moderator, Harith, and our precious designers, Izudin from Jupiter Meteora, Jaha from our ETHKL, and Phil from F4 Studio. Round of applause, please.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys, for coming to this panel. I'll just kick things off right away. I like to start this kind of panel with getting to know the actual people here. For a lot of people here, especially who are designers in Web 2, they might be looking for inspiration on like how to get into this journey, jump into this rabbit hole of Web3 design. And I think all three of you had experience in Web 2 before you jumped in. And so the first start, I think it'd be really cool to get your story on how you started in this space. So Izudin, if you don't mind, you can start sharing how you got into this space and kind of what it's been like.
Hello, my name is Izudin. I'm from Jupiter and Meteora. We're doing AMM and DEX in Solana. So I was at Petronas doing design system, leading the design system. We set like the standards for Petronas digital apps. Okay. Back then I was looking for a remote job, and then I was also pushed to be a like managerial role, which we are only doing slides, not design. And then yeah, I don't want to go to management role, so I'm looking for like crypto stuff. I mean, because yeah, I had like few interviews at CoinGecko, PancakeSwap, and all other stuff. And then Xiong found me. I mean, yeah, he know that I'm looking, so so I get the job. Yeah. Yeah.
Should I? I'll just pass it on. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be back in Malaysia. My name is Phil Hediatnia. I'm co-founder of a company called Airfoil. So the quick claim to fame for us is that we've worked on product design, branding, go-to-market strategy across 150 plus projects in crypto, including working with the folks at Uniswap, at Near Foundation, Solana Labs, Ava Labs, and many more. My story, I'm clear it's quite evident that I'm not from here. I grew up in the US in a small town, and I started doing hackathons growing up. So I started off as an engineer and product manager, working on a variety of projects. And then I ended up starting a job search platform in the US called Solver IQ. We sold that company in 2018, and then I joined a VC where I was in kind of a head of platform role, where my job was to connect founders with product designers and creative talent that they could work with. And that's where I started to see some of the pain points that led me to want to work on Airfoil, as well as started to dive into crypto and understand that the technology was really powerful, but the experiences were really, really hard to use. So I think for my background as a designer, it's been a bit untraditional because I've been an engineer, I've been a product manager, and I've also worked on product design for the better part of a decade. What really made it click for me was this. I used to think that I wouldn't do design because I never really thought of myself as an artistic person, and I kind of thought that design always had to be something that people that had a knack for kind of the arts would take on. But I've come to understand it's very different than that. And in reality, like while art is an important piece of the process, I think it's really about psychology. Design is similar to communication. It is understanding what is going on in your user's head and then presenting them with something that they're going to understand based on that. And so I realized that it was something that I cared very deeply about. I enjoyed more than other things that I did because it's like cracking a puzzle almost. You need to figure out what you can put out there that's really going to ultimately succeed. And then that plus the mission of crypto that I'm very, very aligned with just made it a logical fit. And then, started Airfoil 3.5 years ago, and rest is history.
Thanks, Phil. And can we get Chaha?
Hey everyone. My journey started a little bit like more than 10 years ago. So back then there were not much UI design solutions and resources on the web. So and then I started creating some UI components like reusable UI components and template themes like different kind of solutions for developers. And it got getting tractions and started getting like more popular and popular. So that kind of gave me an opportunity to work with different companies and for some years. So then eventually that led me to kind of join to EtherScan, and yeah, so that's a kind of small journey that I took to for blockchain space.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? Like, how did that entry into EtherScan happen?
Entry. So I was working with many companies because of the product. So like, as a clients, and so we had some kind of like ongoing like communication with EtherScan team, like helping some redesigning the product, and that's kind of like started like from that point, and it's been like for I think like 5-6 years ago. Yeah. So
And I think I'll do one mini question for Izzuddin because you mentioned Petronas, and I think out of all three of you, you probably had like the most extreme difference between the previous life and the current life. So maybe can you explain a little bit what the work life or cultural differences are in working in a company, a huge company like Petronas, is working in a kind of plucky Web3 startup?
Is very different because it's very corporate. Okay, I was also the first designer for Grab when we were still small. It's called My Taxi before that, and I was sorry, my background is from engineering, like telecommunication engineering, and then I drop out, and then I went to interview, and then I get a job for front end developer. Then at Grab, I was forced to do design. And then from there, I started become a designer, and then I worked at like very different industry. I work at IoT, e-commerce, and it's nothing much different. It's for if you're for Petronas, it's just the culture. We don't really do the design much. We just like approving design. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that gets to one of the main questions for this panel, and probably one question that can take half hour just to answer. So I think a lot of people here probably be wondering as well, like, what is a huge difference between doing design or UI UX in Web 2 versus Web 3? Yeah, we can start with Phil.
Sure. I'll dive in on that. So I've been asked this question a lot, and my short answer is I don't think there's much of a difference, but I'll explain why I'm saying that. I think that a lot of times we assume that there is a substantial difference. So let me give you an example. Across most DeFi protocols today, the way that you authenticate as a user and begin to use it, right, is you go to the top right of the screen, you click Connect Wallet, pop-up shows up on your device, you press approve, and then you jump into the application itself. I think that's a horrible way to onboard to a new product, right? And there's a reason for that, right? It's because onboarding is not just about collecting a username and password. It's importantly about priming the user to be able to have a successful experience. That's why you may have seen if you log into a website and you have on one side, you have the login form, and on the other side, you have a testimonial from a happy user, or you have links to documentation, or you have guides, you have things like that. There's a reason for that. It's because it's not about maximizing the number of people who click the button to sign in. It's about maximizing the number of people who ultimately have a good experience with the product. And if you jump directly into a DeFi protocol and then are presented with a bunch of buttons, things to click, but no guides on how to do it, save for go to the Git book and then go read through the documentation, which users aren't going to get to use, they're going to click away, right? I think ultimately crypto has a bit of a bubble effect, which is that it's a large enough bubble that probably the primary way I pay my friends back for dinner is with crypto today. because I can live in that, right? I work in this industry, we all do. And so we're all surrounded by people that use these tools on a regular basis. But it is a bubble where most people in the world don't have that experience and aren't already onboarded. And so when they begin using our products, it's almost like the experience is only as strong as its weakest link. So I think we need to pull a lot of that stuff back in, right? Really think through user flows end to end as if the user has no prior context. Continue to provide them with context and reasons to be there. I've called it in the past raising their health bar, because it's almost like you throw them power-ups in a video game. One wallet that I really like, for example, is Glow Wallet on Solana, because when you onboard to the wallet for the first time, instead of just jumping you straight into your brand new wallet, it has this cool onboarding experience that has a wallet that like turns and falls through space, and then it like says thank you for like downloading Glow, and it presents you with like a moment of delight. All of those details matter, and that's all stuff we know in Web 2. It's all stuff that Grab does, but it's not stuff that most crypto companies do, and I think we need to.
And Jaha?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of like in Web2 the UI flows and the user interface is more established, like comparing to I would say like in Web3. So like because it involves like extra layer like interactions like transaction, maybe even sometimes hardware, wallets, and kind of stuff. So it's kind of like from that perspective, I would say it's a little bit different. And Web3, I think is the designs are more like modular. So for example, like maybe because there's it's just growing. So maybe in future, so we're gonna see more and more like different these designs as well. So what I mean when modular, so for example, like when you go like certain dApps like Uniswap or anything, so you might see that like swap or something. So like or like even like connecting wallet. So somehow you will experience this with different dApps. Yeah. Oh.
Then,
Yep. For me, I think it's a bit straightforward. Once you know what you are solving, it's pretty much it's very easy. Maybe new stuff is something like new design components that is not in Web 2, like probably like wallet and then like transaction. Transaction is very straightforward. Swapping and all that. You need to like create new design components. Other than that, it's very straightforward. But I was trying to bring more Web to designers. They are very scared. They thought like you need to learn a lot. Like you need to learn a lot of technical stuff to do Web3 design. So, but it's not actually.
and I think the two of you hinted at this kind of transactions or making like interacting with a blockchain that's not in your control, right? Whereas in Web 2, everything's in your own servers. So that goes to my question. My next one is, what would be some of the major challenges that you faced in your entire time in Web 3 from a UI UX point of view in having to deal with or interact with blockchains? And how has that shaped your design for your products? We can start with Jaha maybe.
So I would say for like most common UX challenge, like Phil mentioned, like onboarding users. So it's kind of like not very straightforward, especially who comes from like different like and apps and Web 2 world. So the one of the most major UX challenge I would say so is onboarding users and terminologies like the blockchain users. So most of the time they are new even, so it doesn't exist like in Web 2, and in a blockchain level, so the complexity of the technology also, so which a lot of like details like transactions like blocks, etc. Yeah, I think mostly I would say this one.
And Phil?
I want to avoid rehashing because I agree with all of that. Maybe I would put it as portraying the added friction of blockchain is something that actually helps the user. So, one challenge that I think we faced, for example, is explaining to a user who's onboarded on one chain why they ought to onboard to another as well, right? So to just give you an example of that, we do increasingly more and more consumer crypto work in Vietnam, but the Vietnamese market had two blockchains that took a very early lead, right? So BSC, Binance Smart Chain, and Tron. And so you have a lot of people that have onboarded to those two, but haven't onboarded to others. So when we're working with, let's say, the Aptos or Sui team or Solana team, they have to come in and convince people not just to onboard to crypto, but to also download probably a brand new wallet. And so that's really hard to explain because in reality, there isn't really a good reason that the end user should invest their time, right? There often isn't. Most of the time, the added value of a different chain is more on the developer side than it is on the end user side. So what we try to do is we try to make it exciting by showing the user what's on the other side of that additional friction. If we're talking about, let's say, a music NFT marketplace, we worked on one called Sound.xyz, and one very common thing that we would do is mention to the artists how they were being treated, let's just say, treated badly by the traditional music industry, and saying, if you want to own your own music, if you want to own your own rights, and want to support that ethos, right, then you should use Sound.xyz. But that's a continuous problem. What I really hope will happen is either we have more multi-chain solutions and multi-chain wallets that will make this abstract this away from the user, or just candidly that we'll see more consolidation over time so that the user experience overall gets better.
Yeah, for me, I think my challenges is understanding what we are doing. Let's say for DeFi, we have pools. Pools have like different kind of pools. We have basic AMM, CLMM, DLMM. You need to study each of that. Yeah, for me, okay. When I first joined my current company, the first like 1 or 2 weeks, I was like, what is this guys talking about? so I catch up by reading Medium articles, YouTube, and CoinGecko books. It helps. My team also helped me. Where else? Yeah. You just need to know what you're building. So other than that, it's pretty. Yeah.
All right, so next I have like a couple specific questions for each of you. We'll start with Jaha. So I think people commonly say this about ETHKL, that it's not the most sexy design out there. And I think one part of that is there is a huge scale that ETHKL needs to handle. So what are your thoughts on how, well, maybe you can answer the first question first, like whether or not you even agree that the design is not very good looking, and whether that matters, and how do you handle that large scale that ETHKL has?
Regarding the design, I think it's design like a very subjective topic. So everyone likes something, so it's very subjective. But overall, for ETHKL is the data analytics platform. So where it works with huge data sets. So our goal, like as a design and product, so we should make sure that we don't overwhelm users with all the very complex terminologies, maybe the extra data stuff. And at the same time, we have to take into account different type of users as well. So some might be retail users, some might be traders, some might be developers. So when you deal different type of group of user bases, so you have to take into account more conservative design style, I would say. So for this is for design part. For regarding the scaling, so I can say maybe in general, in any design, even in Web2, Web3. So the general stuff is using reusable components that like to make it like your UI is like consistent across like different pages. So like because like any minor change might affect like a huge user base. So it's a consistency is very important. For the EasyScan specific like huge data analytic platform, it's important to consider that kind of not overwhelming basically the data stuff. Yeah.
And yeah, so you mentioned like a lot of users can be angry when you have so much scale. So like if there's 100 million users, 1% is still 1 million,
Yeah,
and that's
true.
a lot of angry users that you have to deal with.
Yeah, and I think we shouldn't take that as from the angry point. I think we should look into that as a feedback. So and try to improve. For example, like when we launched it this year, slightly redesigning the EasyScan. Scan. So we had a lot of feedback, and I think we addressed it like most of them. So I think we should look into as like more like gathering like feedback and addressing the user experience overall.
Right, thanks, Shah. Next is Izzuddin. You not only run not just not a DEX, but a DEX aggregator, and a DEX aggregator on Solana, which is a chain that maybe some Ethereum people are not as familiar with. What are some unique experiences with the UI UX that you've had to deal with that you can share with people who are here?
So we probably have like 4 different type of user. The first type is like very pro users. Mostly, most of them are developers. And second type is degen. Third type is probably one is familiar with blockchain, and the fourth type is normies who are very very new. So our job, Jupiter job, is to import these people to Solana and protect them as much as possible. Yeah, we need to balance the UI to be like very easy to use for normies. Yeah, and protect them from, let's say, during the meme coin. Let's say that there's a token called King, and at that time we have like 4 or 5 different tokens with similar name. And then yeah, we try to create like token list to protect. Okay, so this is the correct token, and then maybe in future, okay, for each token maybe we could have like what is the volume, what is like for the amount in each pool for each. And yeah, generally DEX is a bit easier than doing AMM, because AMM is like very technical. You need to know, yeah, the DLMM stuff is very technical. DEX is like very straightforward. You can do perps, you can do limit order, what else? DCA stuff. It is very straightforward. You almost see that thing every day. So yeah, not much challenge on that part. So yeah.
And for Phil, you've mentioned earlier you work with a bunch of projects in the space. What are some maybe interesting stories or design challenges that you've had to deal with working with all these different types of projects?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was thinking about the best example to talk about, and apologies because I know it's ETHKL, but I have to give a Solana example in this case because I think it was a very interesting project. So I know that at the beginning I mentioned how design may include art, but it's not necessarily art, right? It's a process of understanding users. And that is also a little bit more meta than just the UI UX itself. It also has a lot to do with strategy. So who here has used the Solana blockchain before? You raise your hand. Okay. Who here has used Solana Pay before? Okay. Unfortunately, only one, but I'll tell you the story of Solana Pay. So we were brought in by the Solana Labs team because they were like, hey, we know that as a very fast and efficient blockchain, we want to promote the usage of USDC for payments on Solana. But the problem is, as Solana Labs, we don't know how far we can actually go, right? So we're getting Expedia Group, Steve Aoki's team came to them, Music labels came to them, MasterCard and Visa, and you may have recently heard about the Visa partnership. Was 2 years in the works. So they all came to Solana Labs saying, hey, we want to do something with USDC payments in Solana, but we don't know what. So the labs team thought about, should we do a wallet ourselves? No, but then we're really stepping on Phantom and Glow. We don't want to do that. We don't want to step on community projects. And so it was unclear what to do. So they brought us in to talk with all the partners and figure something out. So what we ended up doing was two things. We released this design kit to showcase what you could do with payments on Solana and QR-based payments on Solana that we released for the big hackathon that Solana hosted last year to begin getting community projects to begin to build. Simultaneously, we worked with their team to put together an SDK that any wallet developer could use to integrate into their application. And so we put the tech out there, and then we showed some very interesting use cases. We did this event in San Francisco at a cafe where we had Shiraz Sher on the Solana team come in and make payments using QR, press releases, stuff like that. So we kind of just planted the idea in everyone's minds, hey, this is a really good use case that you should begin building on. And by the way, here's everything that you need. That doesn't sound like a design project per se, but I would say it's very much a design project. And in this case, our users weren't the end users. Our users or our customers were all of the developers and all of the partners that needed to be convinced in order to build on Solana. And instead of leveraging just UI and UX, also we had to design the copywriting. We also had to design websites. We also had to design our messaging and promotion strategy, all of that. It's the same stuff, even if some of it is traditionally considered design and some of it isn't. The result of that today is that now, Solana Labs has a major partnership with one of the largest credit card processors. It may have taken 2 years to do it, but it shows the value that can come from working backwards from what your users need and thinking a little bit outside the box on how to actually design solutions for them.
Right, thanks, Phil. So as I understand it, we have time for more Q&A questions. So feel free if anyone in the audience wants to ask. Oh, I see one hand there first. Can I get a volunteer to pass this mic?
Sorry, who was?
Hi, I'm Iman from ETHKL, the UI UX designer. So, question to the panels. So, as designers in Web3, how do we attract and onboard more designers in the Web3 space? Question to the panels.
I have a thought on this, but I don't want to take too much time. So I think there's a few problems that we need to solve. First of all, a lot of people think, as I believe you mentioned earlier, Web3 is too complex. It's too difficult to understand. In addition, there's frankly been so many scams that a lot of people associate the entire industry with scams, and we have to fight that very, very actively. And I don't think we often do enough to do so. But I'll start with this. I think that we need to recognize that we have a dearth of great product designers in Web3. We need more. And so hire people without Web3 experience and train them. That's not a great answer for an early stage startup, but especially more established companies, I think, need to take the initiative to hire more junior and mid-level talent and help mentor them and support them, right? So I can say at Airfoil, we try to do this as much as we can. A lot of folks that have joined us, even joined us in the early days, including 2 of our first 20 staff are both based in KL, still are here. Both of them started as junior designers at Airfoil and then made their way up the ranks. But part of the reason that that's very important to us is that we want those people to go lead projects down the road. What I often see, though, even in larger companies in crypto, is they sort of say, we want to do the what's called the Netflix model, which is we only hire senior people and that's it. And we have just a few of them. Hey, Stripe had only 2 product designers and its first 100 employees, and that was good enough for them. I think there's a consequence on the entire space of taking that attitude. And I also just think, frankly, that hire the people that you admire their design sense the most and trust that if you give them a couple months to get up to speed and support them along the way, they're going to do a great job.
I think that organizing like these events helps a lot. So like hackathons and this kind of like blockchain-based events. So I feel it's one of the best way to onboard like designers and developers to the ecosystem.
Yeah, for me, introducing them to like good companies is important because for new designers, I mean for Web2 designers, they thought like our company may can like survive 6 months or 10 months or something because maybe we don't have money or something. That is like their concern. So I think maybe it's good to explain to them that we have this much cash and then all that survivability lah. Uh, okay. What else? Okay. Hackathon. Maybe we could do like product hackathon, not just developer hackathon. Maybe you could do like Figma design prototype for designers like for Web3 products. Yeah, that's my suggestion.
So maybe that's one feedback for ETHKL organizers. So we have a next question from Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt from ETHKL. So this is a more of a generic question, right? And not specifically for Web3, but I think like looking at everyone here, right? I mean, you guys have a lot of experience in doing what you're doing. You're subject matter experts. But taking it down one step, right? When you talk about UI UX, right? No, it's like UI UX. So where does UI and UX differentiate itself, and where does it overlap? So how do you define UI UX?
And sure, who wants to go first? All right, Jaha.
I think so the UX part I think like it might be quite different than comparing the like web 2. So overall, like my take about the UX and blockchain is more like from the technical aspects, where for example like those like interactions, flows, steps to kind of like reduce and make it to end user easier. But nowadays, like we can see a lot of development is going like in Ethereum, especially in Ethereum community, like account abstractions kind of stuff. So kind of it cuts the layers of like different extra steps. So from the UI side, I would say it's mostly follows the Web 2, but then like it also like adds a little bit like extra like terminologies, maybe kind of stuff. So that, and as a designers and products, so we should make sure that it's easy to understand for end users when they use the product.
I think UI is a subset of UX. So yeah, maybe we can do, for me, we do like UI stuff, but UX is like everyone's responsibility in the team. Yeah, maybe it can be led by the designers, but for us, like Jupiter and Meteora, everyone is like taking the responsibility of better UX. Yeah.
The last thing I'd say on that is I think these terms are, to your point, I think these terms are blurring together over time. I mean, think about like 10 years ago, I feel like most engineers would probably categorize themselves as like, I'm mostly a backend engineer, mostly a front-end engineer. And these days, most people are full stack, right? They may have a particular focus that is the thing that they're best at, but generally speaking, the expectation is that they can tackle any of those things if need be. I think that's very true in design as well. Part of this has to do with tooling. 10 years ago, the way that you would design a website is you would go in Photoshop and you would simply design the visuals. And there would be a very big gulf between what the designer would hand off and what the engineer would have to ultimately build. But little by little, that's been coming closer and closer together. When we started using Sketch instead of Photoshop or Illustrator, then you had the ability to create component libraries that you would just reuse over and over again to create rules. With Figma, now you can actually do CSS output. And now there's more and more plugins that can output to front-end code. So little by little, we're bringing those things together. I think where we're headed is really this. somebody needs to drive the experience, and that includes understanding which features ought we be developing, right? What are our users complaining about? What can we prioritize? And one person has to work on handoff and systems. So there's a term that we use called design systems. It basically means you create a component library once. Your buttons, your tooltips, your font sizes, your colors, you set all of those in advance, and then you reuse them across the interface and don't modify them unless you absolutely need to. Now, why do you do that as a designer? Because if you make any changes, an engineer then has to go make those changes, right? The way an engineer would implement it is they would implement all the components first and then assemble the application later. So I can say that in the way that we run projects, we tend to have one person that's sort of running out in front, creatively coming up with ideas and rapidly prototyping them, testing them, all of that. And then we have one person that looks at what's come out of that process, looks at the existing front-end library, and begins to weigh, hey, that little thing that you threw into your UI, is that really necessary? That's adding 3 days of engineering time. Or, hey, that's a little inconsistent with the design system. Let's straighten that up. Or let's make changes to the design system, and ultimately guides its implementation.
We have one question over here.
Okay. Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your knowledge and time. My name is Izo. I've been involved with blockchain development since 2018, doing private and public projects. So my challenge number one when it comes to onboarding normies, as you define, is the explanation of the private key, public key, cryptographical back here. What is your thoughts on how to make the UI UX more smooth to onboard the normies and to make it easy to understand? If you are doing any efforts on this direction, or in these days, in this time, it doesn't matter anymore. Something that I have seen, I don't know if you have used French.tech, is that they just connect a Google account with a blockchain account, and you don't even see anything related to the public keys. You just click accept and decline. It is the direction that you personally think that you should take, or what are your thoughts on that regards? Thanks.
So that's a little bit tough, because I think the friend.tech approach, I think my concern is around, it's really easy to hack social accounts. And I still think it's pretty easy for somebody's accounts to get compromised. But what I really think it comes down to is this. Everybody should have many wallets, not one. The idea that you have one wallet that you use across all your applications also means you have one single point of failure. And if we really want crypto to be the way people pay for things, collect digital assets, get their paychecks from work, then that's not really secure enough, I think, for the average user. But think about in your everyday life the way that you would use a wallet. I've got some money in my wallet right now, not very much. Why? Because somebody could go pickpocket me on the street and take it. And importantly, I don't want to lose, 1,000 USD if I have that in my wallet. That would make no sense, right? So we make certain decisions over where we store our money and financial assets today based on relative levels of security. We say, I want my paycheck in the bank. I want my day-to-day spending money in my pocket. Maybe I want some more cash at home, right? I think the same thing is true with crypto. For most consumer crypto applications, I think we should go full friend.tech approach and just hide everything, right? So there's an app called Even that built on Polygon, and they allow you to buy NFT versions of the first albums that artists release. So you can support artists you care about by buying their first releases. I've bought a lot on Even. I love it. The point of Even is not reselling anything. Like, you're not making money buying on Even. No one makes money on Even other than the artist. The reason you buy is to support the artist and get a closer relationship with the artist. So does Even need to really care deeply about security? I would argue no, because there's just not much value transacting on it. And that's by design, right? I think where I get more uncomfortable with friend.tech is because the point of friend.tech, in a way, if we're being honest, is to get rich. And so there is going to be a lot of money running through friend.tech. And so there are serious risks to people doxing themselves. The other thing that I'm following right now that I think is really interesting is the social recovery wallet. So we worked on one social recovery wallet already. The idea is basically that it's using homomorphic encryption. You can have a series of friends that can go help you recover your wallet for you when multiple of them agree that their wallet ought to be recovered, without it actually showing or revealing private keys. I am not sure that it's going to work exactly as planned, because I think the idea that you get a group of friends together to help you recover your wallet involves you asking people to do a lot of work for you, and I just don't think people will do that. But where I think that's really valuable we've seen some very interesting stablecoin projects in both Africa and Latin America where local currencies are incredibly unstable. And so if you could have an entire community that could, for itself, operate systems to recover your own wallet, that could be really special. But speaking about design for a moment, I also think that's why we need to actually design these products more for those communities. I do not think that it makes any sense to come into markets with developed and highly efficient financial systems and try to compete with those systems. The vast majority of people in the world don't live in countries where that's true, and so I think we should be designing our interfaces for them. As somebody who's, my family's from Colombia, there's almost no products in crypto that support the Spanish language. And those are in countries where you'll see, 50% inflation in a given year. Those are exactly where we should be focusing, and I don't think we do often enough.
So thanks for the answer, Phil. Do we have more questions from the crowd?
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Liang. I have a question for Phil. I like how you mentioned about design is not only about art, but also a form of communication. And we talk about communication, it is two ways, right? So I'm curious, how do you communicate, or how do you know whether this design is truly communicating with users or not? And also, there are cases for example, Izzuddin and Jaha, their websites has multiple type of users. How can you make a design that communicate with different group of people? So there's two questions here. First is, how do you make sure it's really communicating? The communication happens. And second is, how can we accommodate different type of users in one place? Thank you.
Got it. So short answer is user testing, but I want to give you a tip that might be helpful to approaching that. So you may have noticed that a lot of times you'll get to a landing page, and then very quickly you'll see a section that's like for investors, or a section that's like for enterprise or something like that. Here's why people are doing that. It's because if you have one page and you try to cater to everybody, you're not going to cater to everybody. You're going to lose everybody. And that's always the challenge that as a designer you're trying to solve. So the idea is you want to pull people away who need their own separate experience as fast as you possibly can, so that you can then give them the optimal experience for them. So it's if you have a big pool of users that are highly, highly diverse, what you want to do is try to separate them into groups as quickly as possible, give them their own individual experiences so they have the best. And I would say, yeah, I think that's my most practical piece of advice on how to really go about that.
Thanks for the answer, Phil. I think we had a couple questions somewhere over here earlier. Okay, so the guy in the white sweater. And was there another raised hand? Can I just check while we're waiting? One over here.
I can just add on, if no questions, I can just add on to the follow-up. I think one of the best way, what you can do is you can use the product, and especially in blockchain, so it allows you to kind of use it and experience it, and to feel it, and based on that, you can also kind of test your thoughts and the design flows. So it's not like in Web2 projects, so you're building maybe a completely different kind of product that you're not able to use and experience the product, but at this stage, so I think you can use mostly any dApps and kind of get experience and understand the needs. So overall, yeah.
All right. Can we get the next question?
Yep. Hi, I'm Faris. I'm not in the I'm not from ETHKL or from the the Web3 environment. I'm from banking, digital banking, and the typical issue that we have in Web2 right now, especially when it's already mature, is that it's very polarizing in a way that when it comes to design, you want to be careful not to design the product as a banker from your point of view, and at the same time, you don't want to listen too much to the customer, because then it would drag your design here and there. So my question is to Web3, do you think, maybe it's two questions then. The first one is, do you think you listen enough to your user yet? And second, are you willing to listen to your user, or you think you're still at the stage where you need to be the one that's leading how the product should be designed. If you get what I mean. Yeah, maybe I think we should balance that. Of course, we should lead, and whilst we are still doing, we get a feedback from our current iterations. Like Jupiter, we have like a few hundred iteration of swap form, like 600 right now. Yeah, we have been collecting feedback, doing research. So let's say we are introducing perps, new product. So we have like a few Solana people testing our products, and while we are doing that, we gather their feedbacks. Yeah, I think it's very important to balance that, not to lead like short sneedy something, and then yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree on it. But both, I think it's both is true. Because at some point, so you have to create and be kind of the first and create, like figure out how it works and visualize it. So then, when you iterating the flows, the design, like the features, so then definitely you have to gather the feedback and work on it. So I think that's true at the time, both of them.
All right, and that's all the time we have. So thanks everyone for asking your questions. Please give the panelists a round of applause.